Welcome to the On Your Mind podcast, where we believe mental illness can be temporary and transformative. Stay tuned for innovative, effective tools from experts in the field of mental health. Hosted by Timothy J. Hayes, psychologist. This podcast aims to change the narrative around mental illness. Move from a place of fear to a place of hope and solutions. Here on Your Mind.
Billy Holder is currently a medical technician specializing in bioelectrical impedance technology. He enjoys studying various forms of transformative body healing techniques involving physics-based technologies. He has seen results in his patients ranging from increased physical performance by professional athletes, elimination of chronic pain in the elderly, and emotional healing and reduced anxiety from post-traumatic stress disorder. Welcome. Thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, Billy, tell us a little bit about how you got into the kind of work you're doing right now.
Oh, wow. That's a kind of an interesting story. My background is in agriculture. I designed conservation programs for large specimen trees and riparian habitats for 25 years. And unfortunately for me, I invested heavily in production, and in the mid-2000s when production and real estate took a crash, the business crashed, the marriage crashed, the kids were all older, and I decided I was only doing it for them. I wanted to get back into something I was really interested in, which was acoustical engineering. So I went back to college and started to study what would it take for me to manage and run or build a music studio or concert halls. And that's when I learned how frequencies of energy either bounced off or passed through or got absorbed into matter. And I also got a job working for a mining company doing like social media. It was this really stupid $15 an hour job, just managing Facebook, Twitter, those kinds of things. And then they wanted me to post something that I disagreed with. And the owner, just as a lark, said, well, prove it to me. And I did. And next thing you know, I spent 2 years in an R&D facility playing with a microcrystal that had far infrared spectrum energy that had a biological effect. And that's when I started to realize frequencies of energy, whether they were light or sound or pulsed electromagnetic, any type of energy affects matter. And next thing you know, I went to Las Vegas with some friends, and I overheard some guy having a conversation in the booth next to me in one of those late night excursions to Denny's. And unbeknownst to me, the investor for this technology that I currently use now was listening in, and he thought I had an idea of what he had. And next thing you know, he put one in my hands. He told me to play with it. And this is my 5th year using this technology. It's referred to as bioelectrical impedance technology. And now here I am. I work with 3 different medical facilities, and it's been quite an adventure and a learning experience.
Wow, after just 5 years.
Yeah, 5, well, it's the technology has only been around for 5 years. So, it's based on a couple of previously known technologies where the person who created it figured out a way to incorporate them two in the same device. And I also use a couple other types of frequency-based technologies that measure electrical impedance in the body and address it. So basically, I look at the body as an electrical circuit board like you would see your house, like that line between the light switch, the copper wire that goes to the light bulb, the circuit breakers in your house, how does it all work? And I don't really worry about chemistry. I don't worry about diagnosis. I'm just the guy that says, okay, there's a disconnect between, let's say, your liver and your teeth, or your low back and your shoulder, or something like that. So there's a lot of circuit boards that are on your body. There's circuit breakers, just like in your garage, that are on your body, whether they're in your ears or your hands. And all I do is reconnect them.
So what's the name of the device you're using?
I use 2 bioelectrical impedance technologies. One of them is called the Electroequiscope. It's based on an older technology called the Accuscope and the Myopulse. They're basically 2 devices put together with a intelligence that connects the 2. And then I also use another bioimpedance technology called the Skinar. And that basically measures bioelectrical impedance, and based on where those impedances are will determine where I put charge. In other words, there's a piece of your body that doesn't have any energy. I put energy in it, and then we see what happens.
So how do you spell the electroectroscope?
As in equal, it's Equiscope. Equiscope, the electroequiscope, and then the skenar is SCENAR.
All right. And so what is the, we were talking earlier and you were talking about how you've, as far as you know, you're one of the few people who's using the equiscope and things like this for the mental emotional connection to the physical.
Correct.
How did that come about?
I started to notice things in regards to how people responded to the technology. For example, I had a client come in, she had foot pain. She went to podiatrist, she went to chiropractor, medical doctor. She went to psychiatrists, psychologists, and they were unable to help her with her foot pain. So I connected her to the technology. Basically, in a way, this technology erases body memory. It returns the cells to homeostasis. It's kind of like a re-education of the body tissue. So in my mind, somebody listening to this might correct me later, but in my mind, I realized that I interrupt that ping pong game between the brain and the body. And after I cleared her ankle and her foot, she started to cry. And I asked her, what's going on? She says, I'm remembering something now. And it turned out that it was the fact that every time she did something wrong when she was a kid, her mom stepped on her foot. And I've had similar experiences with people who are in chronic pain. They don't have any way to clear it. And I'm usually the last person they see. They go to alternative medicine. They've done the pills, the drugs, the surgery, all kinds of things that never give them any help. And then they'll come see us last. And a lot of times I started to realize there's something going on in their head. So I started to reach out to some of the people I knew, and I created these mentors that helped me with some of the psychological aspects of what's going on with people. And I learned these protocols that I could now incorporate with the applications that I do, which, it's basically a combination of somatic experiencing and the trauma resiliency model, a couple of things that I learned. And I found that I was able to take what I did farther and help more people by addressing not only what was going on in their body, but maybe what's going on in their head. I'll ask them, what did they just do? What happened? What is their desired experience? And then I try to get them into purpose. And then I try to get them to feel what it was like the last time they accomplished that purpose. And in the meantime, I'm using frequencies, by the way, that actually are causing entrainment in the brain, because these frequencies, delta, alpha, theta are very important frequencies when we're talking about brain entrainment, so I was able to incorporate those. And at the same time, I'm working on, let's say, their shoulder, and his desire might be, I want to get back on the surfboard. So now we're talking about surfing. Some people are stressed. I make them do sighs of relief, or I'll tell them stories about the last time I took a great big sigh of relief. And then I'll challenge them, can you use your voice box to make a sigh of relief? And I found that a lot of people didn't have the ability to go back and actually capture a physical responses to their emotions, just to be able to go, and they would make cleansing, but they wouldn't be able to do things like that. So I would help them in that ability. At the same time, I'm working on their body, and they walk out happy as a clam. So I think for me, the biggest thing that I help people do is have a little bit of increase in self-awareness so that they can be better captains of their ship, and get them a little bit closer to their desires.
So when you think in terms of the highest volume of people that come in a particular category for a particular form of relief, whether it's mental, emotional, what would that be?
I'm starting to think, and that's a good question, because I was just thinking about that. I see a lot of A-type personalities. Those are the people that are so into what they're doing, they're into their heads, that they don't have a lot of contact with their body. And then the only contact they get from their bodies when their body says, okay, everything needs to come to a stop. They can't move, they're in pain, they're disasters. And when I interview them, they don't have actual body memories. It's hard for me to go back and say, when was the last time you felt A? I don't remember. I can remember the details. I'll tell you what color it was or whatever. But as far as the feeling, they don't have it because they're so into their heads, their problem solving, all of these things they got to do. And they're so logical about it.
So for a person like that, the critical point for referring to you is that they're in physical pain?
Usually those are the people that have physical pain that have not got any success anywhere else. The places that I work at are alternative medicine, and people usually turn to us after they've exhausted whatever funds they have with traditional, or they're just not satisfied with what's going on with their insurance companies.
And so you mentioned, somatic experiencing, and that's a term that comes from people who've done a lot of trauma work, and Peter Levine and things like that. So I'm pulling out of what you're saying that much of the physical discomfort that you're helping people resolve, or at least some of it, you're discovering is related to past traumas that are being held in the body.
Absolutely. And I have to kind of dive into that. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. I basically follow the directions to the doctors that I work with. And a lot of times they'll give me hints and clues, and then I will kind of explore that while I'm working on them. Normally I'm there for the symptom. His back hurts, or her foot hurts, or, they have some issues with sometimes it's the facial expressions or chronic pain in the teeth that the dentist can't identify. And there's all these kinds of symptomologies that don't seem to match up with anything else on the body. Like, for example, sometimes people have teeth pain and they'll go to the dentist and they will, they'll explore all kinds of things, and the people don't have any relief. And then they'll come to me and I'll notice that there's pain in the temporalis, or they'll have tendinitis of the temporalis, which causes tooth pain. But nobody bothered to explore that because they got that scrunched up face. And, now the masseter is involved. And then because I'm familiar with how the circuitry works in the body, that's directly related to your toes, believe it or not. So take your shoes off, and I'll see how inevitably their toes are all crinkled up. They're stuck in a trauma. And then I'll go from the toes to the diaphragm. I'll push around, look at the diaphragm, breathe. And sometimes we find out it's just the actual physical diaphragm stuck. They can't breathe correctly, even though as far as you'll ask somebody to breathe in deeply, and after you've seen a number of people, you realize this person thinks he's breathing in all the way, but he's not. And then so I'll run current through the diaphragm to relax the diaphragm, and then they'll take a breath again, and they'll be like, they're almost high, because now they're actually getting way more oxygen, and sometimes that's just enough to pull them out. So based on the things that I've discovered and working with these doctors, there's so many aspects of trauma that get stored in the body. And then there's like this ping pong game between we're rationalizing the pain, or we don't know what it is, or we got this fear or something going on that's in the background. Some people, they seem so calm and so put together, but then on the other side, they're a disaster. And it's almost have some, like they got some kind of cognitive dissonance. They're not even aware of what's going on in their body. The body's saying, I'm afraid, I'm in pain, and the brain's not paying attention to it. I still got to do what I got to do. And they're like soldiers marching forward because their boss is yapping at them. You got to get this done. You got to get this done. Or they got something in the back of their head based on what they think they need to be as far as accomplishing their goals. And they're not even aware of their body. So a lot of times, if there's anything I could say that I really help people do, is become aware of themselves. Can you feel your toes? No. Okay, let me run current from your toes up your leg, through your spine, up to the occipital, and then you keep trying to move your toes. And next thing you know, their toes start to move. So neuropathy is one of the things that this technology helps people with. They don't have the ability to feel or sense or pain. It's usually If you think about it, pain and neuropathy are kind of the same thing. It's the brain's inability to make contact with that part of the body. So the body either doesn't sense it at all, or it sends out a 911 signal basically saying, pain, what's going on here? That's why people that get phantom pain, because they lose their limb, but they can still feel it because the brain says, I know you have a foot, but it's not there. So there's a 911 signal saying your foot's in pain, even though you don't have a foot. So it's following that from an energetic point of view has been kind of interesting because it's all brand new. There's not a lot of people out there doing this. And we're just discovering how important the energetic connections electrically, which is based on I think is Nobel Prize winning scientist, something Sachs, they realized that we run on picocurrent electrical energy. We take sunlight, turn it into electricity, and the byproduct is biochemical. So I skip the biochemical. I don't care about your diet, even though it's important. I don't care about your structure, even though it's important. I just go to the electrical connections. Can we create a connection and clear out whatever block, whether it's a physical impediment or a mental impediment, to whatever's going on in your body? And I work with psychologists. They'll play with the guy up here, talk therapy, all that kind of stuff. I get them, and I try to connect what's going on in the body. And then usually between the two, whether I'm working with a psychologist or chiropractor or acupuncturist or a medical doctor, even people that do hormone therapy find that what I do helps them, because there's energetic properties in the body that are directly related to production of all kinds of enzymes and hormones and energy, and we respond to that. So it's been quite an adventure.
It sounds like it. You told the story of the woman with the foot pain who had the realization after she had a release that that's where her mother used to inflict pain on her when she was off the mark. Do you have some other stories where there's been an identifiable connection between a past trauma and a current physical pain?
I'll give you a couple. A client comes in 2 years ago, violent car accident. 2 years later, she's still having symptomologies. She had surgery, she got repaired, but she still was not able to feel her fingers, proper use of her hands, and constant pain from her neck down her arms, which is, structurally is an issue between C6 and C7. So they cleared all of that, but she still had it, so the chiropractor wasn't helping her, the DO or the medical doctors, she still had the pain. So I basically took a terminal and I basically relayed electrical impulses that are clearing the bioelectrical impedance from her neck to her hands. She is so ecstatic because the pain is gone. She can move her fingers, she can feel them, and she was just amazed at how well that worked. She literally, 20 minutes later, it all comes back. And I asked her, what were you thinking? Because by then I'd already started to feel these, sense intuitionally, because I've been doing this for a while. Well, she walked back over the things that she had to do the rest of the day, which involved driving. And she started to talk about how she got cut off. And next thing in her whole conversation was about driving. And as she's talking, she's starting to go like this. The more she goes, the next thing you know, oh my gosh, by just towards the end of the conversation, she was shaking from pain. So I said, okay, come back in here. So I did the session again, but this time I started asking her questions about the greatest drive she ever had. It was a Sunday drive through 17-mile drive. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's up in Northern California. It's right along the coast, just through the redwood forest. It's beautiful. And we're describing the trees, and we're talking about our family, and everybody's smiling. What did it smell like? What did it taste like? What did it feel like? And the more she talks about it, she starts to drop down. And then because I'm using different frequencies and I've been trained to, right about when I went from, I usually do the interview at Delta, I repeat what she says back to me at theta, which is at REM entrainment frequency. And by the time I get to alpha, that's when I plant the suggestion. I asked her, what's it going to feel like the next time you go on a drive just like that? You know, because she had her kids waiting in the waiting room. You know what I mean? She's got her family. She's got to take this drive. She's got to run all of these errands. And she started to describe that, her body, her stomach, her, you know, what are you smelling? What are you seeing? And I just kept hammering. What are you going to feel like? What are you going to feel like? And it's like, how do you feel like right now? And she says, she described all of those same symptomologies, which were all really good. I'm light, I'm happy, I'm smiling, my kids are smiling, my husband's smiling. Boom, she was great to go. And, you know, I got a phone call like a week later saying, you know, I still feel fantastic. Thank you so much. Which made me think, was it really the Equiscope? You know I'm doing this stuff. Sometimes I kind of wonder, is it more the technology I'm using, or does it just kind of open it up for me? You know, because I deal with some psychologists who are really good at what they do. And sometimes I start to think maybe it is just what's up in here. You know, maybe I didn't really need to use this technology, but because I do, it's like an instant opening. You know, I don't have to talk the person into relaxing. It's just open. Boom. The impedance is gone. They can feel, they can move. And it's a type of therapy. A lot of times people got to come over several times. It's not a one-time fix all. You know, you work with people. But I've got a very good success rate of, you know, if I can see you like 3 times within a week, I can remove like 50% of your pain. Sometimes it's all of it on one. Just depends on where people are. And the more I do it, the more intuitive I become. But there's not a lot of, let's just say, directions. There's not like, I can't go online and do research. What should I do with this client? You know, you just
and the best part of it is that what you're doing is probably what's going to be recommended by most of the experts who work in this field, and that is stay connected and tuned in to your intuition, and the client is in front of you. So when you're doing this kind of work, the answer that the client needs to find is inside the client, not inside the textbook that you read.
Absolutely. If there is a textbook, because I have yet to find one. You know, I find research, like for example, I can go to the United States Library of Medicine and I can find research that says if I run theta and alpha frequencies electrically through the 10 and 20 position of the occipital, I have a really good chance of reducing anxiety. So a lot of times I'll do that just to get people relaxed. Those kinds of things I learned. But what's going to happen as soon as I stop? You know what I mean? They feel great. They walk out the door. Next thing you know, they get cut off on the freeway. Now they're back to yelling and screaming, and they get back like this again. So there's got to be something somewhere in between what I do and the practitioners I work with, which I've been very lucky because I work at places where there's an incorporation. You know, they're going to see the chiropractor, then they're going to see me. Or they say me, and then they go see the acupuncturist. And then they'll go from there to a psychologist. And I've gotten to where I'm able to ask people, because technically I'm not allowed to diagnose. I don't offer a cure. I'm not a licensed practitioner, but I can say, have you seen a chiropractor? Have you seen an acupuncturist? Have you talked to a therapist? Because I can kind of tell, you know, and I just ask questions. So I spend most of my time while I'm working asking questions. What's it going to feel like the next time you go drive the 17-mile drive in Northern California? And they're going to give me the answers. So I constantly just ask questions to pull out as much of that feeling that they can give me. And sometimes it's just a matter of grounding them. I find, you know, like, can you feel your toes right now? No. All right, I'll touch their toes. Can you feel your toes right now? Yeah. All right, let's concentrate on the big toe, the little toe, because I know they got something going on in their face. Well, there's a relationship between your toes and the masseter. And that masseter is your jaw. For some, I don't know why it is. All I just know that the research I've done has shown that they have discovered that for some reason, people with messed up toes sometimes have a messed up face. So I'll get them to move their toes, move their calves, and then there's energetic pathways that are going through their legs. That there's meridians through their legs that related to the bladder, the kidney, the liver, the lungs. All those kinds of things can be addressed by simply getting them to move their body in ways that they're just not used to doing. They sit in a chair all day, or they're in a car all day.
One of the things that we've heard from so many different places is that it's just an energy system, this thing we call a body, and the thoughts are energies, and the emotions are energies, and the hormones are energies, and the nerve impulses are all energies.
Yes.
And when you disrupt the system that carries those energies or signals, then you're going to disrupt the processing of the system. And one of the more intense energies that we generate and experience are the emotional energies. And for a long time, people have known, especially body workers, massage therapists, chiropractors, physical therapists have known that people lock their traumas into their bodies.
Yes.
And a long, long time now, people have known. It's been at least 40 years since I had a fall, and it's more like 35 years since I had a fall and cracked a vertebra in my back. And I kept going to these massage therapists, physical therapists, chiropractors, and they'd find out I was a psychologist, and they would routinely say, "Oh, you should have been here yesterday. Oh, you should have been here last week. I had this person here." And they would tell a story of when they do a release in the hip muscles or the shoulder muscles, all of a sudden, like you say with the person with the foot, they'd burst into tears.
Yes.
And they'd ask, "What's going on? Why are you crying?" "Well, I just remembered a trauma when I was 15. I remembered a rape. I remembered this and that." And the evidence, the actual experience of so many of these people who work with the physical body has taught us for years that energies get lodged in the body, and sometimes they're there for decades. And once those energies are freed up, if you can make a connection to the conscious logical mind and or the unconscious that's holding that energy there, as you release the physical blockage, you can get a lasting result. Right.
It also works the other way around, though. That's why it becomes kind of an interesting puzzle to solve. Like, for example, I'm walking down the road and I break my right ankle. I now have an electrical impedance that my brain is not able to make contact with somewhere in my right ankle. Well, the response physiologically is the whole left side of my body is going to tighten up. It's kind of like that primal thing, you're running from the bear, you break your ankle, you still want to run, so now you're hopping on your left side because you still got to get away. Well, sometimes the brain doesn't let go of that other side of the body because the right ankle didn't heal properly. There's still some remnants of an electrical impedance that's not getting to the brain that causes some remnants of the compensation required by the left side of the body, which is probably related to the trauma. And now they've got this constant memory of the trauma every step they take. And it's, and then that whole idea of the brain taking, this is the part that I've always found fascinating, that the brain uses like 80 to 90% of everything you take in. All of your energy, all of your oxygen, all of your nutrition goes to serve this. And if you don't have enough, your brain is going to rob something from your body because your brain's number one. So now let's say your brain needs something that your kidney needs. Well, the brain's like, screw you, kidney, I need it. So now one of your kidneys is probably going to go bad because of what you are not supplying to your brain, which is related to what you're not taking in nutritionally or whatever your exercise is. So now you've got this vicious circle of things that your brain is like, oh, I feel like I'm thinking clearly, but I got a problem with my kidney. And it might be just from something that happened to you. Because your kidney can be related to what's going on in your diaphragm. And this is where the interesting part about energy comes in. Your diaphragm is kind of like that doorway between your first and second brain. And it holds trauma. It's like that, also that window between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. It's right there. I can, I breathe when I'm not thinking about it, or I breathe when I want to breathe, the doctor says, take deep breaths. I can manage my diaphragm. But that sends waves of energy through the adrenals, which sit on top of the kidneys. and then the kidneys, they feed the bladder, and then you go down to the pelvic floor, and people constantly complain, I got a prostate problem, or I got a bladder problem, or I've got a cortisol issue. And sometimes you just need to unlock that diaphragm and it all goes away, you know, because it just sits there all stuck. You don't have any oxygen. You're not giving that flow of energy, which is this wave that comes up and down your body. And people don't realize how important breathing is. And that's, I think, fascinating, because that's really come to a forefront right now. People are realizing that I should do some breathing exercises, and these
Right.
breathing techniques are just passing through right now. People are realizing those are amazing, yeah, but sometimes you still can't breathe because your diaphragm's locked up, and you need somebody to help you with that. And sometimes that's all you need, and boom, you walk away feeling like $1,000,000.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have been, for a lot of years in therapy, we've been telling people in the first session, here's the first skill we're going to teach you. It's a certain kind of breath that communicates to your body that you're not in fight or flight. And you know, I think we've talked about, you know, there's a Wim Hof breathing technique. There are
Right.
all kinds of techniques in yoga that people swear by that give them good results. There are, Andrew Weil does the 4-7-8 breathing technique that he swears by for anxiety. And
There's
so,
all kinds of scientific studies that show that there is a neurological relationship between your brain and the upper lung, which manages anxiety, and then your brain and the lower lung, which is more when things are calmed down. And then there's these, what they call neurological points, both posterior and anterior, that have to do with the lymphatic system, which makes sure your lungs are clean. So your lungs could be fine, but there could be something blocked in the neurolymphatic system that says, no, they're not. And your brain thinks there's something wrong with your lungs when there isn't, because maybe you got popped in the chest one time and it's interfering with the information that's coming from your lung, that's based on information from the lymphatic system that says, this is what the lymph does. It clears the lung from any types of poisons and stuff. But it's probably clear, but because the lymphatic point that tells the brain that says it isn't. So that's kind of weird, like I was saying. Sometimes it is that psychological aspect, but sometimes that is caused by something that's physical. Sometimes you just release that physical, like the lady's foot or the lady's neck. They have memories. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't have that anymore. And then the memory comes through, and now they realize they have some kind of a consciousness or some kind of self-awareness that they didn't have before, just because something wasn't coming into the brain.
excellent, excellent. Well, I know that we're winding down on our time here. I just wanted to ask, what's another aspect of your work that we haven't even touched on yet that you want to share with us?
I think in general is the understanding that, and this is kind of, I learned this from my weakness, by the way. I was never really good at linear algebra. So I really had a hard time with chemistry. Physics is more of a geometrical issue. I really rocked when it came to geometry. And I think there's another way of looking at the body that a lot of people don't explore. And that's the fact that we are a electrical circuitry system, and energy goes to and from different parts of the body. And if you start to realize that and you use that to your advantage, you will become more successful helping people with their endeavors. You know, I just because of that is what I learned what was going on in people's heads, because that information comes out of the head into the body, and then there's a response going back. So I would say the thing that really fascinates me the most, and at the same time helps people the most, is if I say something and I have a stimulation that's going to my body, I have a thought, that sends information, frequencies of energy going to my sensory parts. And then there's that information that comes in and then is reinterpreted. And understanding that, I think, is probably the biggest thing that I've really been endeavoring to accomplish myself in regards to what I can accomplish with that information. And I would say it can range from pain, anxiety, PTSD, problems with your organs are sometimes, or actually not sometimes, most of the times are affected by your structure, and your structure is affected by how you feel. Like there's parts of this technology that people use. Like there's this lady in LA that does microcurrent facials with the same technology. And you have to think about it. The people want this line taken off on the front of their head. Can you remove that? And then what I do is I go, let's go over your facial expressions. And I'll find out, okay, this facial expression, you need to stop doing it, because no matter what I do, it's just going to come back. And sometimes it's that feeling of pain, or, oh my God, or that furrowed brow of anger. It just, all of these things that we think and feel have a physical manifestation. And you can look at it strictly from that aspect, or for me, it's just like, okay, there's something that's going on, and you're furrowing your head. And why are you furrowing your head? And then maybe I can just relax the muscle to keep you from doing that. And then maybe I can help you with your face without having to do surgery. So it's very interesting how people have taken this technology and have used it. Me, I care more about how you feel. I want to make sure that when you come in, where are you now? And it is my satisfaction to make sure you feel better when you come out. And that's basically what I do. If you feel better and you're more self-aware, I have accomplished my goal.
So what's the typical length of your sessions?
Between a half an hour and an hour. So like if you just got a shoulder problem, I'll run current through the capsule, whatever relative muscles that control the shoulder. And while I work with you, we might talk about your golf swing. About 30 minutes. If you have something going on with the curvature of your spine, might take an hour, because I got to go through each individual vertebrae, and then I have to go through wherever that particular vertebrae may go to. So sometimes leg problems take a little longer than shoulder problems, because there's not as much area for me to cover between here and your tip of your finger versus here and all the way to the tip of your toe. And then then other issues just kind of depends. And it depends on your practitioner. They tell me, I work with them. They tell me what their problem is, and we work on it. And typically, I usually like to start people with 3 sessions within a week, and then we see where we go. Because remember, I deal with people with chronic issues, and it didn't happen overnight, so we can't help them get over it overnight. But I can significantly improve their condition within 3 visits.
So where do you get most of your referrals? What's the source?
From friends. I worked on that person. They had a problem. A guy comes in and says, I got this bicycle race coming up. I got a problem with my knee. My friend said that you helped him. So I get those kinds of referrals, but mostly from doctors. I have a relationship with certain medical doctors, chiropractors, acupuncturists, and I work very well with them. I make what they do better. Like, for example, I can increase the amount of energy you have in your body. You take that to the acupuncturist. He's got more energy to work with when he does the fine detail. So I'll pull out the dent, they'll do the pinstripes. Or the chiropractors, they can't move the guy's neck because it's locked up. So I'll relax all the muscles. He's kind of like a little bobblehead now. And then he goes right to the chiropractor, and boom, he pops him right back in. The medical doctor, you might be thinking in terms of, well, he's got a bladder issue. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe you could do some impedance readings to let me know. And I'll say, I think maybe it is the guy's diaphragm. I check this diaphragm. I check this diaphragm points. Let's start with that. And then we do like a process of elimination, because it's a puzzle. Not everything happens the same way for everybody. And because we have to work together with different ways of looking at it. And I just happen to have this unique way of looking at people. And it gives, I guess, a fresh perspective to the practitioners I work with.
So how do people get a hold of you? What, you have a website?
You can go to, if you go to the Center for New Medicine at Irvine, they have a website. The Center for Advanced Medicine in Encinitas. And I also work for True Renew Health in Carlsbad. And I go wherever I'm asked to go. Sometimes I'll go up to Ventura. I'll go out of state. It just kind of depends. The technology I use is portable. I can put it in a suitcase, pop it in a plane or on a train or wherever I need to go. And it really depends on the situation. So I'm happy to say that I'm flexible. Sometimes I go see you. Sometimes people come see me.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate your taking the time to talk with us today. It's a great pleasure. And
Thank you very much. This has been fantastic. I don't get, it's not very often I get to explain what I do with people.
Well, I'm excited. I have the benefit of working with a lot of people on emotional issues and traumas from the perspective that the addition of the tools you're using would be a great help. And so I'm interested in sharing it with some of the people I know and helping spread the word on how beneficial the emotional and psychological work can be working with the
looks like we
electrical
lost
impulse that you do.
I'm excited. Like I said, this is where I'm finding my my purpose is being fulfilled. Like I said, if you feel better when you leave, and you're a little bit more self-aware of yourself physically, I win.
Well, I look forward to hearing about your progress as you move forward and learn more. And I will look forward to connecting some other people with you. Thank you.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Take care.
You too.
Billy Holder is currently a medical technician specializing in bioelectrical impedance technology. He enjoys studying various forms of transformative body healing techniques involving physics-based technologies. In the past, he carried state, federal, and international credentials, allowing him to design conservation programs for large specimen trees and riparian habitats. Disease, nutrition, and structural issues via natural and man-made environmental pressures were his expertise. He worked mostly for universities, land development, and management companies. He raised a family while doing it, and then came time for a change. Now he specializes in a technology that is only 5 years old. He finds immense satisfaction while helping others, breaking new ground in the field of energy-based medical technologies. As a science, it's still in the exploration stage, and the outlook is extremely promising. He follows direction from a variety of health practitioners, medical doctors, chiropractors, acupuncturists, naturopaths, and psychologists. He has seen results ranging from increased physical performance by professional athletes to the elimination of chronic pain in adults and the healing of reduced anxiety stemming from post-traumatic stress disorder. His expertise is in demand in a number of areas of medicine, including research and consulting. He can be reached at True Renew, Trurenu, True Renew Health in Carlsbad, California. TrueRenewTherapeutics.com. TrueRenu Therapeutics.com. He also travels to work in a number of medical centers from Orange County to San Diego. He can be reached by contacting his coordinator, Susan Fernandez, Susan at TrueRenewTherapeutics.com. You can learn more about the technology he uses at intelbio.com.
You've been listening to the On Your Mind podcast, offered by Journey's Dream, where we support people through mental health challenges to a place of true and lasting well-being. If you love our show, we invite you to visit onyourmindpodcast.org to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our helpful resources. Thank you for listening.